Time never remains the same for everyone. This is a hard-learned truth that elders often tell their young children. The poor may become rich, and the rich may become poor. It all depends on what the time decides for you. Some people enjoy all the amenities of life, while some go through troubled waters. But the problems in our lives prepare us for the blessings that we receive later on. What will be the point of all the blessings if there are no worries? Surely life will lose its value and become drab because there will be nothing to hope for. Mr. and Mrs. Jonas were the wealthiest couple in the community. They lived a very luxurious life and afforded all the amenities that life has to offer. Mr. Jonas was often away due to his business meetings, and Mrs. Jonas took care of their only son, Max. Max was a bright student in his class, but he was very lazy and often procrastinated his work and other assignments. Mrs. Jonas was very disturbed due to Max's laziness and often discussed it with Mr. Jonas. Mr. Jonas was quite a wealthy man, so he did not care if his only son was lazy. He had worked all his life to get to the stage where he could afford all the luxuries for himself and his family. The family spent their summer holidays abroad in warm and cozy Mediterranean areas. Overall, Mr. Jonas was living his dream life, and he had secured everything for his son that he lacked in his own childhood. But nothing lasts forever. Time changes its path when you least expect it. It was the 18th birthday of Max when Mr. and Mrs. Jonas were coming back to their house. The house was well decorated for the birthday party of Max, and all the gentry of the city were invited. Max was in his room getting ready for his party. It was around 8 o'clock when the phone rang. Max picked up the call and heard the tragic news. It was a call from a hospital. His parents were in a terrible road accident and were shifted to the ICU ward. The excitement-filled house suddenly became lifeless. Max rushed to the hospital and saw his parents badly injured. His mother was in a coma, while his father had died at the spot in the accident. The whole world suddenly came crashing down on Max. Max stayed all night at the hospital, and the next morning, his mother also passed away. Max could not believe what had happened. He had never endured any pain all his life due to his parents. His father and mother had always helped him in every problem throughout his life. It was the first time that he had felt all alone, submerged in endless pain. After the funeral, Max returned to his house, but nothing was the same without his parents. Sadly, this was not the end of his worries. Mr. Jonas was the CEO of an automobile company and had a share of more than 50% in the company. The other partners started to take advantage of the situation. After the funeral, Max received a call that his father's company was going bankrupt because most of the partners had filed baseless claims for his father's share in the company. Max was a young guy who did not know the business his father ran. Within 1 year, Max was driven out of his own house and was forced to live on the streets. His whole life had become hopeless, and even the closest friends turned their backs on him. No one could recognize Max anymore due to his poor condition and torn clothes. One day, as he was waiting in line for some free food, a man pushed him out of the way and took his place. Max's eyes suddenly filled with anger as he looked at the man. An older adult was passing by. He stopped and looked at Max. After a moment, he told Max, "You need to fight for what is yours. Otherwise, the world will pin you down forever." A spark lit up in Max's eyes and heart, and the anger in his eyes turned into hope. He stood up and walked away in deep thoughts. The next morning, he cleaned himself up and wore the only set of clean clothes that he had. He then went to 6 different job interviews that day, but had no success. It had been a week, and he went to different companies for a job, but all of it amounted to nothing. He was once again losing courage, but wanted to try one last time. That day, he went to a small tech store for an interview. The owner recognized Max, and looking at his condition, gave him the job, but the pay was very low. It was all he needed for the moment. Max worked enthusiastically at this job for 1 year and saved enough to afford his college tuition fees. He then worked day and night to clear the entrance exam of a law school and continued his job along with his studies. It had been 6 years since his parents had died, but he had secured his law degree. Finally understood how his father's parents had fraudulently taken everything from him. He filed a case against the company and the shareholders. After 6 years of continuous effort, he was finally able to fight for his rights. The shareholders suffered a significant loss, and Max's hard work triumphed in the end. He had to fight for 1 year against the giant shareholders, but he never lost hope and continued with his struggle. After 7 years, Max won back his home and the shares of his father. He did not stop there and finally bought the entire company. At that time, he understood the hard work of his father and learned that laziness does not get you anywhere. Max belonged to a wealthy family, but after his parents' death, he lost everything. He then went to law school to fight for what he had lost. Eventually, he won back everything that he had lost and learned that laziness does not get you anywhere.